I call this to order. And to do our invocation, we're privileged to have Pastor Jason Miller from the senior pastor from Providence Mennonite Church. If we could all please rise.
Let's bow. The psalmist records, O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have displayed your splendor above the heavens. You're the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You're the same today, yesterday, and forever. You change not. It's you that formed the earth and everything in it. You birthed this great nation and this great city in the hearts and minds of our founding fathers. You gave us freedom. You allowed us to grow, allowed us to prosper, and have brought us to the place we are by your amazing grace and your limitless mercy. You have blessed us over and over again, and for that we give you thanks and praise. We meet tonight under your watchful eye to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make wise decisions that promote the common good for the people of Virginia Beach. Tonight as we meet, may we be respectful of each other, open to one another's ideas and opinions, and may we strive to understand each other, not undermine one another. Bless the efforts of the mayor and the city council members who represent the people of this great city. Bless them with clear insight. Bless their deliberations with your wisdom, their work with clarity and accuracy, and their decisions with impartiality. And Lord, we thank you for all your many blessings. And as Scripture says, because it's for in you we live and move and have our being. And so we invite your Spirit here among us tonight. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Do we get the roll call, please?
Yes, they're all present.
All right, can we vote on the certification of the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The vote is open.
By a vote of 11-0, you have certified the closed session to be in accordance with a motion to recess.
Okay, could we certify the minutes of the informal and formal sessions of December 4th, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, with Mr. Moss abstaining, you have approved the minutes as submitted.
Mr. Mayor, I'm abstaining because I was out of town.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moss. Okay, do we have some folks here from the Human Rights Commission? If you can come forward, please.
Do we have extra
How you all doing? You know, as a point of personal privilege, Shannon and myself have the privilege of serving as liaisons to the Human Rights Commission. What valuable work that these folks do. You know, the courage to come forward and tackle those tough decisions, but it helps us become a stronger community. For this, we thank you, and for this, please accept this proclamation on behalf of the City Council. Human Rights Day, December 10th, 2018, marks the 70th anniversary of the United States General Assembly Universal Declaration of Human Rights, affirming fundamental freedoms and human rights for all people. And whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, peace, in the world. And whereas the United States of America is a nation founded on the principle of individual rights and is still working to fulfill and fully realize the ideals confirmed in its Constitution and Bill of Rights. And whereas December 10th, 2018 commemorates the 25th annual recognition of Human Rights Day by the Virginia Beach Human Rights Commission, a positive advocate for the human rights of Virginia Beach citizens, Whereas we recognize that our relationships to one another, person to person, community to community, and nation to nation are defined by our differences, are not defined by our differences, but our shared belief in the ideals, affirmed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And whereas the City of Virginia Beach is committed to championing the rights of all citizens, we will continue to be an inclusive community in which our citizens and visitors are respected and welcomed. Now, therefore, I, Robert M. Bobby Dyer, Mayor of the City of Virginia Beach, do hereby proclaim December 10th, Human Rights Day, and December 10th, Human Rights Week. Thank you, and God bless you for what you do and will continue to do. Thank you. Yep, come on up, folks. You got it. Thank you. All righty. All right, I'm going to open up a public hearing on the sale of excess property, 220, 216, and 212-214 North Oceana Boulevard. Are there any speakers?
Yes, one, Joe Bellick.
I'm not going to speak.
Okay, thank you. You said you want to speak on the ordinance.
Okay, and then there being no speakers, then number two, the Correctional Center Master Control PPA proposal.
No speaker, sir.
Okay, and then we'll close the public hearings. Okay, can we have the consent agenda, please, Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move for approval.
Did he say 1B? Did you include 1B in your call, sir?
Pardon?
Did you include 1B, 1514, 1536?
Oh, my
1540
apologies.
Indiana?
My apologies. Let's go back to public hearings. And including in the sale of excess property, 1514 and 1536 and 1540 Indiana Avenue. Thank you for the correction.
There are no speakers.
Okay, that being, we'll close it.
Okay.
Mr. Wood?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval under the consent agenda, under ordinances, resolutions, item J3. A, ordinance to amend the city code section 12-2 regarding liability for expenses incurred fighting certain fires, and that was consent for indefinite deferral. 3B, code section 17-5, 23-21, 23-32, and 23-34 regarding larceny. 3C, 5-103 and 5-104 regarding creation of the Animal Control Unit Advisory Board. Item 5, ordinance to authorize $140,000 payment from the Next Generation Network CIP to the Virginia Beach Development Authority regarding internet connectivity and economic development. Item 6, ordinance to appropriate $445,000 from the Tourism Advertising Program Special Revenue Fund to the FY 18-19 Convention and Visitors Bureau operating budget regarding advertising and marketing efforts. Item 7, ordinance to accept and appropriate $12,000 from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to the FY 18-19 Fire Department operating budget regarding purchase of hazmat team equipment. Item 8, ordinance to transfer $1,732,024 from capital projects 2-107, 2-149, 2-168, and 2-176 to capital project Laskin Road Phase 1A, and transfer $1,619,398 from capital projects 5-805, 6-093, and 6-559 to capital projects Laskin Road Water Improvements Phase 1 and Laskin Road Sewer Improvements Phase 1.
Call for a public meeting on planning.
Under planning, item K3, Columbus 4692 Associates LLC for a street closure regarding an unapproved portion of Potomac Street at the west side of Independence Boulevard, District 4 Bayside. Item 4, Dory E. Milford and A. Christine Carroll and Joan Lee for a change of nonconformity regarding 2 dwelling units at 4201 Oceanfront Avenue in the Beach District. Item 5, Potter Properties Group LLC for modification of conditions regarding a farm stand and ADA-compliant restrooms at 1065 First Colonial Road in the Lynn Haven District. Item 6, Little Warriors Christian Academy and St. Francis Episcopal Church for conditional use permit regarding child care center within a religious use and modification of conditions regarding religious use at 509 South Rosemont Road in the Rose Hall District. Item 7, Chua Ba Tin Hao and Miss Saigon Properties LLC for a conditional use permit regarding a religious use at 437 North Witch Duck Road in the Bayside District. Item 8, Everlasting Looks LLC, Bella M. Hanson, for a conditional use permit regarding tattoo parlor at 4640 A Good Road in the Bayside District. Item 11B, ordinance to amend the city zoning ordinance, section 232, regarding communication towers. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor,
We pulled that.
you did pool number 1?
Yeah, so numbers 1, 2, 3, under ordinances, item and K 1, 2, 9, 10, and 11A under.
Okay, I just want to
We added 2 since the.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The vote is open.
We need a second.
A second?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, vote is open.
By a vote of 11 to 0, you have approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wood.
Okay, do we have any speakers on item 1, ordinance to declare excess property?
Yes. Mr. Bellick, you don't want to speak? Okay. Barbara Messner?
Welcome, Barbara.
Good evening. And, am I on for J4? That's what I originally, okay, because you didn't mention that, thanks. It's quite a big agenda, 385 pages. Okay, I do not understand, am I speaking on J1 or J2 or both? Just
You
one?
signed up for both.
Do you want me to do both now?
J1 right now, Barbara.
J1, okay. You're declaring excess property on North Oceana Boulevard. That's where you have a lot of the school bus storage, and that's in a,
Oh, before you get started, I have to read a little statement
right.
going
right.
forward. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Okay, I want to remind everybody that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items and items where a public hearing is required by state law. As to all other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. Also, when speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. After those who have signed up to speak have spoken, the chair will ask if there are any other persons who wish to speak on the item at hand. Those speakers will be allowed to speak and will be asked to give their name, address, and telephone number for the clerk to record. Thank you.
thank you. For the people who aren't aware, it's 220, 216, 212, 214 North Oceana Boulevard, and 1514, 1536, and 1540 Indiana Avenue. And that's where there's a major bus hub and gas station right under the path, direct path of the jets. And I object to the nonstop finding excess property, declaring it excess, and then not putting it on the open market for anyone, because these properties shouldn't be used anyway. You already got money from the BRAC Commission to keep residents away from these areas. Okay, the first one, you declare excess, it's for Bouchard. Bouchard's building all these high-density duplexes all over the beach, and Town Bank is financing them. The second one is just initials, THSB LLC, and that's Attorney Robert Perkey on 34th Street. So I strongly object to declaring all the excess property and then selling it to developers for housing in a known jet crash and high noise area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Mesner.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval, item J1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, vote's open.
By a vote of 10 to 0, Ms. Abbott abstaining, you have approved the item as read.
Okay, Jess?
I just wanted to mention my abstention is because the applicant uses a subcontractor who is a client of my family insurance firm, and premiums derived from business policies are based on amount of work completed, and therefore the commission my office receives is based off of that amount of work that they have completed. So the city attorney advised me I did not need to abstain, but I felt it was necessary to do so, and I do have a letter on file.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, next, okay, anybody else to speak on J2?
Ms. Messner,
That was the,
or you want to speak on J2?
you,
Mr. Mayor, move for approval item J2.
okay, second?
Second.
Okay, vote is open.
By a vote of 11 to 0, you've approved the ordinance regarding Indian Avenue.
Okay, next item is J4, resolution to direct the city manager not to reconfigure Atlantic Avenue near 40th Street. Okay, any speakers?
Yes, sir. Chris Stone is the first speaker, and after Mr. Stone will be Sharon Barish.
Hey, Mr. Stone, how you doing?
Mayor Dyer, I'm doing well. Vice Mayor Wood, City Manager Hanson, members of council. My name is Chris Stone, and I'm here tonight to speak in opposition to the resolution. And I'm actually wearing two hats here tonight. I'm on the executive committee for the Virginia Beach Chamber of Commerce, and the Virginia Beach Chamber opposes this resolution because they do support the reconfiguration at 42nd Street and Atlantic. Not only because it will benefit the businesses, but also because it'll benefit the residents, but more importantly, I think the tourists that visit our great city. The second hat that I'm wearing, actually, I'm a resident of the North End. I live on 77th Street, and I do believe that this is a public safety issue. I do believe that the city has a fiduciary responsibility for the public safety of all of its residents. And I will tell you that there are many, many nights during the summer when my wife and I will ride our bikes from 77th Street down to the oceanfront to take advantage of the amenities and the entertainment that's at the oceanfront. And quite frankly, the curve at 42nd Street is probably one of the most dangerous ones that we will encounter on our trip from 77th down to the oceanfront. And although I may not look it in the summer months, I do ride my bike every morning from 77th Street down to 25th Street to try to get a little bit of exercise. And I will also tell you that it's extremely dangerous. Not only are there no dedicated bike lanes, but it's also it's a pretty significant curve. And with the development that's down there and the increased traffic, it's going to be more and more, I think, dangerous for the residents that live at the north end to be able to visit the oceanfront. So again, I would ask you to oppose this resolution. I do believe that the reconfiguration is an important safety factor. I also hope that this is the first step in really kind of taking a look at all the traffic calming that's needed at the north end. Quite frankly, if you've driven up there at any point in time in the summer, you know it's extremely dangerous. Most of our residents park at the north end and try to take advantage of the beach. I know my wife has actually made a sign and put out in front of our house that says free parking for all of our residents, because we're fortunate enough to live at the north end, and we want our fellow neighbors to come and visit us. Lastly, I'll say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and my best wishes for you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sharon Barish. And after Ms. Barish will be Joe Bellick.
Good evening. How's everyone tonight? I live in the Hilltop section of Virginia Beach, and my name is Sharon Barish. I'm a native of this area, and I'm opposing the 40th Street close-off as well. I utilize that area a lot. I think it would be a crime to close that off and lose that access, because there's nowhere else to go. It's going to create a lot of congestion for people that are on the road, which is going to in turn create road rage, and we have enough madness on the road as it is today. Being a previous EMT for the city of Virginia Beach, God forbid that there would ever be a fire over there of any magnitude. If you've never driven an emergency vehicle, the turning radius is almost nil on the trucks and the ambulances. It is so hard to get ambulances and fire trucks into a situation. If it was a 2, 3, or 4 alarm fire, you're fighting winds from the ocean, buildings in close proximity. You'd have people killing each other trying to get out of the place to begin with, being mauled and whatnot. I think that would be terrible, especially if it was during tourist season and tourists were here and someone was mauled or killed in that respect. I don't think it would look very well for our city. But if you had to have additional backup, you've got Oceana Old Donation Courthouse, maybe Dam Neck would pitch in sometimes. It takes a while for them to come in transit to where they're coming from. And I don't understand why the city permits these fire hazards to go on places like Cypress Point, Highgate Green, Lake Placid, Ocean Lakes, parts of Ocean Lakes, Courthouse Estates, Castleton, to name a few. They have one way in and one way out. And again, if you have a fire, what's going to happen? It's going to be mass confusion, hard for emergency vehicles to get in and out. So it's going to create a lot of havoc. So I think closing 40th Street is going to be a big mistake. And I think all of y'all are here for the city, not for yourselves. You're here for the people, we the people. And if you feel that, you know, you're here for yourself, maybe you're in the wrong position and you shouldn't be here. If you're here for one person that wants to have this done, let them go off in a corner and have a meltdown and sulk and get over it. We hold y'all accountable, we the people of the city of Virginia Beach. You're not here for the tourists, you're here for the people that live here year-round. And a lot of times we feel very pushed out because of the tourists. And it's always the tourist, the tourist, the tourist. So we need to have something else done, and we need to have something done for the people of the city of Virginia
Thank you
Beach.
very much. Appreciate
And I
it.
appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for letting me speak. Merry Christmas to everyone, and may God bless each and every one of you and your families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Bellick, and after Mr. Bellick will be Mary Lynn.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. Good to see you in the hot seat.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
I'll be brief, but during the invocation tonight, the one word that was used that just stuck out at me was undermine. You know, my favorite word whenever I talk to council is transparency. Well, undermine and transparency in this context really goes together. Right now, with this situation here and not tabling it until January, undermines the public trust exponentially from what it was before. We've gone through this time and time and time again. Transparency, show transparency. Well, we have not seen, or at least I have not seen, and I know a lot of other people have not seen, any definitive proof that this is a necessary closure, that this project is absolutely necessary. Okay? Couple things I'll bring up. I have a lot of notes here I'm not even going to read because everything's just bouncing through my head. Okay? The Cavalier went on for many years. How many years, Bobby, was the Cavalier here, Mr. Mayor?
Long time.
Long time. Didn't have to use anything on the street for a valet stand. Don't understand why he needs one now. If he needs one, and it's a public safety issue, and it's a this and a that, then I want to see a study. And a lot of other citizens want to see a study too. They want to see a real study, an independent study. Not something that's possibly, not pointing any fingers, not something that's possibly tainted by the developer himself. That's transparency. From the beginning of this project, there hasn't been total transparency. We were told it was going to be this, and it was going to be this, and then there's something else added on, and then there's something else added on, and there's this, and there's this, and it just keeps going on. There's all sorts of things that are added onto this project that the public was not made aware of when we supported restoring the Cavalier. That was the main thing. Let's restore the Cavalier. Then it turned into, oh, well, let's throw the property across the street into the equation and that. Same thing here. I know I'm talking around a subject, but the whole deal is transparency of this process. And I think what we really need to do, or what you really need to do, is table this until two things happen. One, you can tell and look every citizen in the eye and say, this is a great thing for the city because, and number two, let's wait till the new council gets in play. There's no reason to get this through before Christmas when there may be other people that might want to speak here and get in touch with you folks. They're Christmas shopping, they're partying at Christmas parties, they're doing all sorts of stuff. Last time this went through, last time this happened was during the arena. It happened during this time of year for the arena. And we asked you not to do this kind of stuff again, and here we are at the table again, doing it.
Thank you very much,
Again.
Joe. Appreciate it.
Mary Lynn. And after Miss Lynn will be Rona Marsh.
Okay, bear with me. I don't know if I'll be able to read my writing. I consider myself, well, first of all, I'm Mary Lynn. I consider myself to be a civics novice. I'm here to exercise my right as a citizen and to hopefully inspire even just one person to exercise their right and follow through with not only voting, but expressing their concerns and wishes with all of you. It's one thing to get out and vote, but if we don't make our wishes heard before you, then our votes are void. I need to catch my breath. I'm not as cool as Joe. I don't wear my sunglasses at night. Okay, so I'm so nervous I even wrote my salutation. Good evening, council members, especially Mr. Dyer, our newly elected mayor. You look really good up there. Okay, so like I said, my name is Mary Lynn, and I support the resolution which is opposing the reconfiguration realignment of Atlantic Avenue. I'm so out of breath.
You're doing fine.
I just walked 4 steps, so I think I'm just nervous. Okay, so I will be the first to admit that I'm not here personally because I have a horse in this race. However, there are many here who do, and many here who are not here who do because they could not be here. I'm here supporting my residential and commercial business neighbors at the north end and oceanfront. For example, I've been in contact with a north end business owner who would be directly affected if this reconfiguration were to be approved. A slight but ever efficient example of the impacts he would suffer from the revenue he has already experienced losing due to less invasive construction. So for example, when the crane was near his business to assist installation of AC units at the Oceans, it cost him in merely half a day, conservatively put $2,000. In this case, if the reconfiguration, and I'm going away from my notes, if the reconfiguration were to be approved, he would stand to lose $400 per parking space, which I believe is around 16 to 18 existing spaces. If that weren't already a problem, and that's anyways. So if that weren't already an issue, he was already considering or in the middle of investing $200,000 into an adjacent pizza property, and you would need more parking, not less parking. So I think it's important to remember that the little guy at the beach, well, the relatively little guy, matters too. So I said, please allow for errors. I may be ever slightly off, give or take, blah, blah, blah. So having said all of that, there are 2 other things I'd like to address. If I am correct, the traffic study did not entail all or any of Holly or surrounding neighborhoods. I believe this study should be broadened. Second.
Thank you. I hate to say, we got to be fair.
Okay,
to
well, shout out to Dana
But I'll tell you,
Cohen,
for your first time, you
at
did great.
Page North End.
Thank you very much.
Unless you're Brian Kerwin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rona Marsh, and then after Mrs. Marsh will be Bernice Pope.
Good evening, Mayor Dyer and council members. It's good to be here. It's almost the holidays. I am strongly in favor of the resolution that Councilmember Moss and Abbott had to put forward to express how many citizens do not want any changes to Atlantic Avenue. I read today, and I concur, it's a bad command when we have a city manager who is favoring more what developer wants than what citizens want. The citizens, by far, do not want Atlantic Avenue modified. The state didn't want to pay the money, and I am really kind of shocked that we found in our limited budget, what, $250,000 to do an analysis already on this? I mean, we seem to have such a shortage of funds, and yet we find money to look at developer pet projects. There's something very amiss here, and I really wish that you would delay voting on this until the new city council is fully here in January. We all voted for new city council members. There's no rush. Why does it have to happen this week when a number of the residents at the Oceans who have reached out to me one person in particular, and said that most of the people there are away for the months of December and January, and they cannot be here to express their concerns. They live right where this is going to happen, and to not allow them to be heard, to rush this through, if you would defer it, you would give them the opportunity to come and speak. But again, we are rushing for a developer, not the 450,000 people in Virginia Beach. I just don't read that many people who want this to happen. And I appreciate that Councilmember Moss and Abbott brought it up. So at least we'll have a vote and we'll see who's really for the citizens. Are you for the citizens? Are you going to vote to defer this and give us a shot? Because it's a safety issue. If somebody gets hurt, somebody dies, if there's a fire, we don't really know what's going to happen. Have we done the report on Holly Road on the transportation? Do we really know how it's going to impact the neighborhood? Has a traffic study been done? I'm not seeing that. I'm reading and looking for the things that would show me this is good, and all I'm seeing is rush, 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 rush. So I implore you to either vote in favor of this motion, or if you can't do that, to defer it to January till the new council is fully here and citizens can be heard then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rona.
Bernice Pope, and after Mrs. Pope will be Becky Culpepper.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
How you doing?
Welcome, Sabrina Wooten. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I am Bernice Pope, president of the Satora Cavalier Shores Civic League. I really want to thank and appreciate the time I have tonight to speak to you all. Whether or not council approves the realignment of Atlantic Avenue, I want to make sure a council member understands the negative impact the Cavalier complex has had on Cavalier Shores neighborhood. Since the reopening of the old Cavalier, we have experienced employee, construction, subcontractors, contractors, guests of the Cavalier, events of the Cavalier, and the Cavalier residences. Everyone is parking all over our streets, and the new hotel with all their guests and employees will not be finished for several years. We need a parking solution. The amount of traffic cutting through our streets has also been overwhelming. Cars have been flying through our neighborhood, causing a real danger to safety of our children. We are currently working with staff to calm traffic through our neighborhood. We do not want a light at the Cavalier Drive if you all approve the realignment, now or in the future. Traffic during rush hours already backs up to 44th Street. We need your help. This is a matter of safety and quality of life. You've got us into this. We need your help to get us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. Appreciate it.
Becky Culpepper. Becky Culpepper. Heather Gymnast.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you. This is my first time speaking, but it's very important. So I've written everything down. Good evening, City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I hope everyone is doing well this evening. I am here as I'm a very concerned citizen with regards to tonight's agenda to realign Atlantic Avenue. I'm here to support the resolution which is opposing the reconfiguration of Atlantic Avenue. This was not on the ballot and should have been in November, but I can assure you it was a hot topic among the voters of our beautiful city of Virginia Beach. My request to all current and future city council members this evening is to table this matter for the new council to take office in January. Why, you ask? Well, the city has not addressed the voters' questions with regards to an independent and unbiased study of the realignment. An independent study should address the fire and EMS safety when evacuating the area. I've spoken with others who are equally concerned. We would like an independent study of how it would impact Holly Road and Bay Colony. As a resident of this fine city, I, among others, often use Holly Road route to avoid the tourist traffic along the Atlantic Avenue corridor. Why isn't Cavalier Drive open to traffic since the Cavalier opened in March? That is another question. We already deal with traffic, 3 lights on 32nd Street, along with the exiting of garage residents and the retail traffic. I also feel that the Oceans residents are impacted by this decision this evening. But the most troubling of all is the impact it will have if and when there's a fire or some other emergency that calls for the trucks and the cars, along with EMS vehicles. This will be hazardous to those folks and residents. In addition, the new firehouse at 4-story would be impacted as they turn at that intersection. Finally, there are concerns regarding local businesses, such as Pacifica. Pacifica is a long-standing successful business where the owner is the landowner forced to sell his property possibly to accommodate said developer. The businesses surrounding that property will ultimately lose their parking. Please table this for the new council and provide an unbiased study of the impacts if Highway 60 is realigned. Please consider my plea. Thank you for your time this evening. I hope all of you are very well, prosperous, and have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby Dyer, as our new mayor. Please, we're counting on you.
Barbara Messner, and after Miss Messner will be BJ Caribbean.
Good evening. This resolution is a little late, and I really feel sorry for the people at the north end who've supported the Cavalier, you know, since its inception, and believed that Bruce Thompson would save the Cavalier. As I said, the resolution is late, and the timing is suspect, to say the least. I pleaded with Moss and Abbott to propose the resolution to stop the arena project for years, since Mrs. Abbott's been on council, and to return the $78 million for the arena project. That was just flipped to the other entertainment projects. Council should listen to all citizens, and the hotel never should have been sold to Gold Key, Jordan, and Mr. Fry. Mr. Jordan is a town bank director. Town Bank, Fulton Bank, and Union Bank finance portions of the Cavalier. Air tax dollars, city, state, and federal, whatever it is, went to the new fire station partly to protect the North End people. That's where most of the good old boys live. The 85 residents are high density. They can't even get in and out of their garages. That used to be gorgeous grounds. Rolling hills, live oak trees. Now it's 2 floors of hard liquor distilleries. Nice smile on your face, Mr. Moss. I guess you think it's funny. Anyway, I oppose this. I saw what you did at 31st Street. It's valet parking for Summer House. It's valet parking for on Atlantic Avenue with a crossover just for the 31st Street Hotel. So I oppose the closing and realignment. Thank you.
BJ Carabin. Les Watson. And after Mr. Watson will be Jack Drescher.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Les Watson. I'm a local attorney, and I represent the owners of the Holiday Inn that stretches between 39th and 40th Street. And I'm here to tell you they have been very concerned about the rerouting of this traffic since the first day it was ever discussed. They are very concerned about the impact it's going to have on access to their hotel and access to for their visitors and for patrons of the Isle of Capri. and they're very, very concerned as well about the impact it's going to have on traffic on Holly Road, where a number of their customers and clients reside. We're disturbed by the likelihood that this access is going to be impeded, because we're relatively certain that this cul-de-sac is going to wind up being a service road for the new hotels. And traffic is going to back up there, and it's going to block the access to the hotel and to the restaurant. And we're also concerned about the implications for this as it relates to other portions of Atlantic Avenue that may become attractive for future development. So we're concerned about the real and immediate impact of this rerouting on a thriving business that's been there in Virginia Beach for many, many years, and it's been successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Drescher. And after Mr. Drescher will be Diana Howard.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Jack Drescher. I'm the immediate past president of the North Virginia Beach Civic League. And before I begin, I want you to understand the role that the Civic League has to play according to its bylaws. And one of the things we have as a responsibility is to propose and work for public service projects in the North Virginia Beach area that will better serve the residents and property owners and will improve the public safety and general welfare of the community. It was that particular premise under which we undertook to try and figure out what would be the best way to funnel traffic in and out of the north end in front of the new Cavalier. So we sat down with all the stakeholders, Leacorn Park Civic League, Bay Colony, the Princess Anne Country Club, Ocean Hills, Oceans Condominium Association, Oceans 2 Condominium Associations, all trying to understand exactly who would benefit and who wouldn't as a result of this change. When we did that, we also met with the deputy city manager, the traffic engineer of the city, and we sat down to try and figure out how best to address traffic going in and out of the north end in front of the new Cavalier. And in doing so, we addressed vehicular issues, pedestrian issues, and bicycle issues. And this question for us simply bore down to one thing. What is the safest and best means by which to control traffic in that area? Based upon the recommendations of the traffic engineer and the experts who did the study. And they said that this realignment was the best way to do it. So with that backdrop in mind, we as a group, on behalf of all of the North End citizens, held a vote, and it was 14-2 of all the directors. This was in December of 2016. In January of 2017, we sent out exactly what we did in a similar fashion to the memo that I sent to each and every one of you, to the entire membership, of which there were some 800 to 900 members, residences up there. We didn't hear a single word from anyone opposed to that particular idea. And the reason for that is that it was going to be paid for, and it helps ingress and egress and safety out of the north end. And that's all we're asking you to do. Now, I can appreciate Mr. Moss's position and Ms. Kane's position, but this has been vetted thoroughly by everybody that's been involved in this, not for simply 1 year, but ever since 2013, when the Cavalier Associates started its effort to try and develop the property. So we feel like it's been vetted enough. We feel like it's the best possible result for the North End and indeed for the citizens of Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Before you leave, I was contacted by the Civic League, and one of them spoke here tonight, and I think they said their Civic League had not taken a position, the one that's right there at 40th Street. Is that not correct?
They did not take a position on this particular issue. There was a legitimate concern by Ms. Pope, and that is the...
So the Civic League closest to the project did not endorse that finding?
Well, we are the Civic League that is close to the project. They are part of our umbrella. They have a separate Civic League as well, but they're under our umbrella.
Right, but I'm just, their Civic League contacted me saying they did not adopt that position.
They did not oppose the realignment either.
Yeah, but
They're concerned about the parking, and I
Right.
think Mr. Hanson, with his...
I just want to make clear, you represented as if they supported it. They were neutral, is all I'm trying to say.
That would be accurate.
All right,
They're
thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Diana Howard. And after Mrs. Howard, it'll be Marlena Castelluzzo.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. I remember being here last year, I think it was March, and we were here like for 3 hours on the Cavalier and the Gap financing. It was a night. And there was a man here who gave you all a petition with over 1,000 signatures from people in the North End that didn't want the reconfiguration of Atlantic Avenue. So I was wondering if there was any more signatures on that, and if there were more people that were opposed to it, because, you know, now it's up now. And we're in favor of you asking the city manager not to go through with this. We're concerned about the parking that's being taken away and the businesses that use that parking for their employees, and what the effect is going to be on people getting in and out of those businesses. And it seems to us that it's all about providing valet parking for Bruce Thompson, right? Dead-ending that street there. It's not a concern with how fire and safety vehicles and people are going to get in and out of that place. So I'm just wondering, why are we going through with this? And I think we're setting up a dangerous precedent here that we're going to take away a public street for a developer so that they can have a private valet parking. What's wrong with the other 57 hotels or 56 hotels that are on that on Atlantic Avenue that also have the same problem with the backlog of valet parking and everything? What they call it, stacking. I think they called it stacking time. That, you know, it would be stacked up there and cause, you know, problems. It doesn't seem to cause that problem for all the other hotels, and if it does, why aren't we making dead-end streets for them as well? And the other things that he would renew the iconic lawn that he ruined with all those houses there. I mean, he's got houses all the way like this, and you have to be like straight in front so you can see that iconic lawn. So now across the street, we're going to be putting a lawn there that'll make it really pretty, right? So it just seems like it's not fair that we're doing special treatment for this one developer. And so I support the resolution, and I hope that you do too. Thank you.
Marlena Castelluzzo. And then the next speaker will be RJ Nutter.
Good evening, Mayor Dyer. It's a delight to address a new mayor, members of City Council. I'm Marlena Castelluzzo, Chair of Virginia Beach Taxpayer Alliance. The issue before you is one of judicious due diligence. Allow citizen input before you close a major oceanfront artery for the preference of one citizen developer. Mr. Hansen's support is hardly a surprise. When has he not supported or proposed projects to the detriment of the citizens of Virginia Beach? The rationale that Mr. Thompson is now willing to fork over $2.5 million for this road closure is hardly a magnanimous gesture. Does the city manager and those of you on city council think the citizens have forgotten about the $18 million given to Mr. Thompson, which magically morphed into $40 million of taxpayer money for his renovation? That 2.5 is a pittance in comparison to the money he already hijacked from the citizens. Regardless of this recent offer, council has failed to implement basic public policy of not having public hearings and minimal public input. Mr. Mayor, in the past week alone, I've been in attendance at 2 events where you stated you were a citizen-elected mayor. Everyone recognizes that the $400,000 raised for Ben Davenport, solidly supported by Bruce Thompson and friends, was an attempt to continue the control Thompson had over Will Sessoms and continues to exert over a number of the council members now. Mr. Mayor, during your campaign, you repeatedly called for and promised a more transparent government, citing that citizens felt alienated, had lost their faith and trust in many of the council members, a fact your opponent refused to address. Councilwoman Wooten, your campaign was heavily financed by said developers. Virginia Beach citizens are most anxious to see where your allegiance lies. Will it be bought a vote so that Thompson gets his way, or will you vote to allow the citizens of Virginia Beach a say in a major artery closure and how it's addressed? This is a dangerous and deceitful precedent council can ill afford to take at this time. Regardless of the monies that Mr. Thompson poured into many of your recent campaigns, VBTA urges that you all vote to support or defer and to allow Virginia Beach citizens to voice their opinion on this road closure. This is a proposal that is in fact a government action that is something long overdue. Thank you.
R.J. Nutter, and after Mr. Nutter will be Bob Glover.
Mayor, members of council, for the record, my name is R.J. Nutter. I'm here on behalf of Cavalier Associates. I only have 3 minutes, so I don't have my usual 10, so I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. A couple of things I'd like to address. First of all, this council has already approved the alignment that's currently underway by my client. It was approved at a large public hearing with hundreds of people speaking, supported by almost every civic league that is around it. First of all, so we're not here. This is a motion to change the status quo. It is not a motion to create a new status quo. Second, the outreach program we underwent took place for over a 4-month period. We met with Galilee Church, Oceans Condominium, the North End Civic League, Cavalier Shores Civic League, Prince Anne Hills Civic League. I'm not sure there was anybody in that immediate vicinity that we did not outreach to. And there was a lot of debate, a lot of study. We also performed a traffic study. We hired the same consultant the city uses, number one. Number two, the city directed the nature and scope of the project, not us. And that traffic study concluded that the safest and best way to handle the traffic generated by this project that would have the least impact on the adjacent properties was the proposal that this council approved over a year ago. In reliance upon that approval, my client has spent well over $100,000 in just the design of making sure this works out the way it was supposed to, as you approved. In addition to that, all of our site plans, utilities, access ways, all of the plans we submitted to Marriott for our franchise are all based upon the access way approved by this council. So I would tell you that we've relied on it. That was vetted by all the people directly related. In fact, I remember quite distinctly, Ms. Henley, you saying that you like to look at the people who are most affected around it in making your decision. And I remember that statement very clearly. I'd also share with you that your staff has told you it is by far the safest route. You're not dealing with a bunch of people who don't live there. You're dealing with people who live all around it. And I went to the meetings of the Ocean Condominium, and that was some of the toughest meetings I've ever had. Mr. Hanson was there, and I'll just tell you, there's still some opposition to that building, but their chairman, their board, spoke in favor and wrote you a letter in favor. So there's going to be opposition to almost anything these days. I apologize for that. But I can tell you, we've relied upon it. We've relied on this council's position. And frankly, we had all the outreach and transparency you could ever imagine for this project. So I'm sorry many people didn't know about those things, but we were here. I was at the meeting. I was at the hearing with you. And it lasted, like she said, several hours. So I'd ask you to vote to deny the resolution tonight and to vote on it tonight, because we can't keep asking these people to come back. I had to call Jack Drescher. I had to call
Thank you, Art.
Bernice, all the others. So thank you for your vote tonight.
Bob Glover, and after Mr. Glover will be Josh Schulman.
Mayor, Council. I'm Bob Glover. I own the building on 40th Street that somebody's about to buy maybe 37 feet of and make me a millionaire. I'm here for a very micro part of this. I don't have opposition to the plan that you have, with the exception of two things. We've been on the property for 12 years. We have enjoyed the public spaces that you have there, the 16, the 12 on 40th Street, and the 4 on Pacific. Avenue. The next metered parking on that area is 5 spaces on 38th Street. The church across from us uses our parking lot and the metered spaces for much of their services, when they have a funeral, a wedding, even the Sunday services. Eat has no parking at all, other than the public parking. And the Oceans uses that space for their guest parking. And the Cavalier new residences don't have a whole lot of space. If you've got a nice big house over there, you may be able to invite 1 or 2 people to bring their cars up. But if you need some guest parking, you can either go all the way to behind the Cavalier, or you can park in this area. For 12 years, we've had to take our 18 spaces in our lot. And at 77 years old, I'm probably the oldest sheriff in the city. But I have to invite people to leave our lot after they can't find anywhere else to park. If you take those spaces away on 40th Street, there will be 5 spaces on 38th Street. And I think the proposal is also for 6 or 7 spaces on Pacific, on Atlantic, across from the Oceans. I think you could do a very good job of making one change. Say you take Mr. Thompson some money. I'll give up my 37 feet that I hope to sell you. And if you would have one way on 39th Street, you don't have to put a light on it or anything, to Atlantic Avenue. You can divide the traffic amount of traffic you're going to have on Pacific by 2, which is a good thing. I mean, on 40th by 2. And you can save all the parking spaces on 40th Street. You can still take 2 spaces off on the Pacific end for a right turn, and you get your 2 lanes to turn left and right. And you have no problems at all coming in onto Atlantic from 39th Street because of site problems, nothing. And you save having to deal with me and relieving you of your coin purse.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
1 second, sir.
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm trying to follow what you're saying with the 39 and the 2 and all of that. Mr. Hanson, our planning, have we looked at what he's just suggested? I mean, he obviously knows this is his bottom line, it's his area. I mean, have we looked at this configuration that he's
Yes, sir.
explaining here?
Yes, ma'am, we did. The problem is on 39th Street, there's walls and private property, and the turning radius is necessary to be able to make some of those southern down turns. The traffic engineers that did that analysis felt like they were going to struggle mightily with being able to make that turn and make that one-way turn that Mr. Glover is talking.
If you leave the street as it is,
Yes, sir.
there's no problem with turning from coming to the north. There's no problem with turning on 39th because you have 2 lanes to turn in. If you're a beverage delivery truck with a tractor and a trailer, you'll take those 2 lanes to turn in. If you're coming off Atlantic Avenue, you're going to have the 2 lanes coming onto Pacific from 40th Street. You still have a right turn lane and a left turn lane. And you save all the parking spaces, save the 2, but you've got it. Maybe it might be 3 for the right turn lane, but you're still gaining the ones that are offered on on Atlantic Avenue across from the Oceans. So it's a net gain of parking spaces. And what you're condemning me to, of course, is to, like I say, to be the oldest sheriff in town telling everybody who's desperate to find a parking space. There are 5 on 38th Street, and good luck. And I think you could do better than that. From 9 o'clock in the morning, all summer long, from May through October, your local citizens come in to that area to access the beach. It's the end of the boardwalk. It's a perfect place to go. The spaces are never empty. They're metered. And then when they leave at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, we pick it up, and EAT picks up the business, and those metered spaces are paid for all the way into the morning.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Mayor,
much.
that I broke our 3-minute rule, but thank you.
No, we're fine.
Josh Schulman, and after Mr. Schulman is Ella Doreen Dunbar.
Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council,
I am on borrowed time tonight, and I think I'm probably going to pay for it later. I just want to say thank you very much for letting us speak tonight. My wife is out of town, or else I would be solo. But I'm here tonight because we love the Cavalier Hotel. My girls call it the Castle. It is our reprieve. It is our little slice of sanity. And it is a place that is very special to us. And we should all support it. We should all support it being built out to its fullest and best potential. And when we visited there this summer, I can't tell you how many out-of-state guests that we had come up to us and mention that they had no idea that something so wonderful existed in the city. And I told them to just keep coming back. I'm here tonight for two reasons. One is to say thank you to my very good friend, Ben, for serving so wonderfully on this city council.
Yeah, I'll ditto that.
And number two, because I oppose the realignment. I'm in favor of the realignment, and I oppose the resolution. And I'm going to let these kids get home.
She opposes the resolution too.
It is, it's sad about it. But anyway, I want you all to know how important it is to us as a family that I came out here by myself with these two kids. Thank you so much. And I'm just, honestly, the other reason I'm here is because I'm tired of the culture of no. That is pervasive, and it just keeps coming back. And it's not only just a no, but it's a knee-jerk no. And that's not right. And that's not going to keep my kids or any other kids here. So when we have big, important discussions about big projects, we need to think about our future, and we need to think about keeping our kids here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Ella Doreen Dunbar. And then after Ms. Dunbar will be Tim Worst.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I stand here before you tonight because I'm thinking about, at the start of everything with the Cavalier, we gave this developer $18 million. And now he wants to give us back 2.5, maybe 3 million. And I think maybe he should give us the other 15 million that we initially gave him also. You are using my money.
Amen.
My money. You're playing fast and loose with my money. How much more is going to be needed for this developer to be satisfied? We have the whole Atlantic Ocean, and this developer still needs my money to make a profit. How much is enough? You could have taken that initial $18 million and spread it around small businesses. I think you would have gotten a better return on this for the citizens. The benefit will be to this developer and the homeowners that live, the North End, wherever, compared to the majority of Virginia Beach residents. The North End people, the Cavalier, they're not the only ones who use the beach. And I don't see any reason why we need to change Atlantic Avenue just to satisfy one developer. To me, it's almost like when you're talking about, you have homeowners that have beachfront property and they want the city to maintain the sand, but then restrict who has access. All citizens use Atlantic Avenue, not just North End residents. We do not need to wait for a new city council. We need the current city council to do their job. You need to address how changing Atlantic Avenue is going to benefit me. And by saying me, I mean all the other citizens of the city of Virginia Beach. However, in my household, when I say, if you ask my husband, who's it all about, he'll tell you it's all about me. So right now, I'm telling you it's all about me and all the other citizens in the city of Virginia Beach. Perhaps if this developer is interested in having valet parking or whatever else he thinks he needs for the Cavalier, maybe he should knock down a few of those $1 million homes and convert that space to as much valet parking as he wants. Did he not know this issue was going to come up? Maybe it was in his plan all along, but he keeps coming back again and again until he bleeds the city dry. You're playing with my money, and I think you should do your jobs and benefit all of citizens of Virginia Beach, not just one developer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Worst.
Got a new friend. Good evening. The mayor is
Tim.
happy. I'm glad to see you there. Glad to see you sitting there. My name's Tim Worst. I live in the Princess Anne District. Mr. Nutter was up here earlier talking about how Bruce Thompson had paid out $100,000 already to do this, which I really don't think is a big damn deal, because he just sold the Cavalier. And did the city of Virginia Beach get any of that money back that we gave him, that $18 million that she just spoke about? Did the city of Virginia Beach get any of that money back? Dee talked about the precedent that you're setting, and it's dangerous. It baffles me that we are thinking about changing an entire traffic pattern for one person, one business, one guy. That $250,000 that we did for the study that she just spoke about, what could we have done with that money? Police officers who don't get paid enough, firefighters, teachers, substitute teachers. We're having a horrible time getting a hold of substitute teachers that we're paying about $90 a day to be a substitute teacher. Bus drivers, trust me on that one. $14 an hour that we pay bus drivers. Homeless, hungry veterans, but we've already paid $250,000 to do a study on this. In the last 20 years, why didn't these safety studies about the traffic in this area come up? Why now is it so safe to change this direction of the streets? Now it's safer to do it because Bruce Thompson wants it. I'm glad to hear some of the other hotel owners coming in here and speaking up. They're tired of being bullied around by Bruce Thompson. I'm also glad to hear a story about Ben Davenport through the campaigning. We have a friend in common, and that friend in common told me about you standing up to Bruce Thompson at one point in time. And I hope you do that again on this
doubt we
vote.
have a friend in common.
I'm sorry?
I doubt we have a friend in common.
We do, I promise you. I'll talk to you privately. He's a good friend. Both of us. Lastly, 2 questions for you, Mr. Hanson. How big is that bag of money that Bruce Thompson has given you to continue to push this realignment? And if you don't get this realignment done, who do you threaten to punch? Thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
I do. I can. I want to talk a little bit first, if I could. I think it is, I like to try to keep these things as factual as possible and unemotional, so I'm going to start a little bit from the beginning. We did sell the property. I didn't vote for it, but that was a council decision to sell the property, and the people that bought the property knew the access that the property had when they purchased it. True enough. And they knew the access that the property had when they started developing the property and when they further subdivided it to create the recreation club or whatever they were putting in the center. So all the things that the property had when they purchased it, it still had. And Atlantic Avenue, if it truly was a public safety issue, then we as the council were negligent when we didn't spend the $2 million to cul-de-sac it ourselves. Because if it truly was public safety, and we were putting people in the Oceans and the Holiday Inn and other places in danger of fire, we would have been negligent not to have spent the $2 million ourselves. But council consciously, a majority of council consciously chose that they weren't willing to fund it with the taxpayers' money, because obviously it wasn't truly a public safety issue, because I don't think anyone on this board would perform in a negligent manner. We might have differences of opinion on issues, but I think when it comes to public safety, we generally are unanimous about funding those things. So the public safety issue is really subterfuge to the real issue. Now you come back to, and we did, and I'll agree with Mr. Nutter, we are trying to change the status quo. No doubt, no different than a developer wanting reconsideration of the considerations that they have, and the council is certainly free to change its mind. And when someone's asking why we're doing this tonight, versus another night, if I've been here on the 8th, we might have been it then, it's because absent some direction from us, the vote that was taken in the past authorized the city manager to fulfill this deal as long as it wasn't taxpayers' money doing it, because what? It really wasn't a taxpayer, it really wasn't a public requirement, it really isn't public safety, or we should be paying that bill. Now, you gotta roll back the clock, and twice the city manager appealed to the state in a letter he did not share with us, directly as a copy too, requesting the state to pay that $2 million bill, $2.5 million bill. Twice the state said, hey, why should I spend money on something that we as a body ourselves were not? Clear enough to me. Now, there can be honest differences of opinion, so I am not going to any dispersions on anyone else's vote here, because everybody's going to come to this for their own reasoning. But I always believed that the ends don't justify the means. I don't care how popular or how much money that property might make, but the public has a public equity in those 16 spaces. The public has a public equity in that open road. And it isn't just the citizens at North Beach or North Beach Civic League. It's all 451,000 stockholders in the company that own that. And we are setting a precedent that if your checkbook's big enough and your profit to the city's balance sheet is large enough, then the fundamental principles of our republic don't matter, because it's all about the money. And I've never believed that. I will admit I never got a contribution check from Bruce Thompson, I'll admit that. And I'll admit that I didn't get any help from HR Biz or VBA TAC, all those groups, but I didn't. But that doesn't prejudice me as to their request. I don't blame Bruce Thompson for anything he asked for, because the buck stops here. And the reason why I think Jessica and I put this vote out, not because we believe it will pass, but because if you don't speak out against a wrong, then people by your silence believe that you consented to what really is, in my judgment, my humble judgment, an injustice to the fundamental principles of our republic. So is it a no? No, it's a yes for what is fundamentally right about the public good versus private greed. There is a difference, and saying no to private greed is saying yes to good government. And for that, I make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Okay, I'm going to open the vote, and I will make a comment after the vote.
By a vote of 3 to 7, the motion has been denied.
If I may indulge you to make a comment. This was indeed a controversial discussion. It was out on the campaign trail, and I had numerous discussions with many people, both for and against. But on the campaign trail, I gave my word that, I would vote the way that I would today. And, I think I want to be a mayor that has a reputation of keeping his word. I am not against people, but I have some problems sometimes with processes. And one of the things I hope going forward is that we can improve a process that will bring conflicting sides together and, really strive towards agreement, perhaps in a, better way going forward. And so as we go into next year and everything, this is one of the things that I'm going to try to do. Now, I am humbled by the fact that I am one of 11, and I must work collaboratively, with my colleagues. But I think we will have a better city and a better understanding of these things going forward by engagement and inclusion and a number of things I spoke about. And so I don't want to belabor that point, but there is one thing, I would like to request going forward. A lot of people for and against things, deserve to be heard. But if we could going forward, I make an appeal that we do it with a little bit more civility, maybe perhaps less name, calling and things of that nature, because you will be heard, and I think you'll be heard in a more coherent and understanding way up here if we have this mutual respect for each other between your elected officials and you. So one of the things I hope going forward, and there's going to be many controversial things that are going to be coming up in the near future. You know, this council has many challenges that we're going to have to deal with. And we're going to do our best to do a better job of inclusion and interaction with the public. Let's do it in a meaningful and respectful way. And, you know, I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to speak to this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I make one
Yes,
comment?
Sabrina?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out to oppose, and to those who, agreed with it. Thank you for coming out to speak. But after careful review and consideration of all the facts, I decided not to support the resolution. And there were two main reasons for that. One was the council supported this agenda item twice already. And the second was the city and the business owner made a substantial investment in it. And for me, to delay the agenda item even more and even further would be disingenuous. And it would become a hindrance after all that the business owner was asked to do and complied, and then to turn around and not go forward with that, I believe is disingenuous. And I believe it sends the wrong message that Virginia Beach is not open for business. And I don't want to do that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, if we can move on to the next item, and that would be number 8, ordinance to transfer $1,732,020. Which one? K1? Oh, K1. My apologies. Okay, Dam Neck Storage Partners, LLC.
The first speaker is Rona Marsh.
Good evening, Mayor Dyer and council members.
Okay, is there an applicant?
Have anybody signed up?
Okay.
Well, if the applicant is not here,
It doesn't matter, I'm going to speak.
I know, but I was just asking if you would excuse me. I was going to ask the city attorney, if the applicant is not here to present, would we act on the item, or would we hear it? Would we defer it? Or
That is entirely in your discretion. It has been noticed for a public hearing. It is on for your consideration. You have the alternative to do whatever you choose, but I think because the public hearing has been called, you would hear the speakers and then determine how you chose to proceed.
is there did we hear anything at all from the applicant? Is he intending to not pursue it?
I don't think your mic.
Was the applicant notified that this is going to be on the agenda tonight?
Requested the deferral.
Yes, you deferred it to this agenda.
This was at the applicant's
At his request, yes.
I think we need to hear.
There was a letter, I think.
There was a specific request for this.
Yes, defer it to the.
Yes.
I think we should go forward.
We got to listen to.
We have a speaker, so decide what kind of motion we want to make.
Got great penmanship.
So, the first speaker is Rona Marsh, and the next speaker will be Stephen Johnston.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Dyer. I'm here again because I'm concerned about the risk on Dam Neck Road being transferred to the citizens of Virginia Beach. When this was presented to the Planning Commission by the Planning Department, Ms. Coleman handed out some documents, and in it shows that there are daily average trips, 19,866 trips on Dam Neck Road. I would say that's a considerable number of trips on a road. It's almost like a highway. If you take your calculators out and you multiply that by 365, you get 7,251 plus trips a year. It's 700.25 million. That is a lot of vehicles on this road. And the ingress and egress on the previous approval that happened in 2015 that I read showed that there was never going to be ingress or egress on Dam Neck Road. And I believe that that was specifically because it is a highway. I almost couldn't get across. I pulled into the turnaround that they would use for ingress and egress, and I almost couldn't get back across the 2 lanes. There's no traffic light there. I risked it and finally got across after many minutes of waiting. But what concerns me is that there are 3 people that have died on Dam Neck Road this year alone. 3 deaths. We had Ricardo Wright, who died on April 17th, and on July 12th, 2018, we had Daniel T. Nicole and Dalton Sensene. 3 people have died on this road, and you're thinking of putting in an ingress and egress with a entry that is controlled by a keypad, because that's what it says, is that the entry to the facility is a restricted gate that contains a keypad, and you're considering making the access to this dam neck storage for any size trailer. So you're going to have large, very big vehicles on Dam Neck Road, basically blocking part of the road, trying to get in and to turn into this on an ingress and egress basis. And I think you're creating an accident where we don't need more deaths. I'm asking you to defer this, to really take a look at this and make sure that we don't have another way this applicant can do ingress and egress. And the fact that he didn't show up tonight only shows that he's not really committed to the public safety. Because this is really what we need, is public safety and not to have more deaths on Dam Neck Road. And I would think that 7.25 million traffic cars a year is enough to review this, so,
Okay, thank you, Rona.
Stephen Johnston. And after Mr. Johnston will be Mike Jared.
Hey, Stephen.
Hey, good evening. I live in Lake Placid. Lake Placid sits at the intersection of Dam Neck Road and London Bridge. This project is just going about a mile down Dam Neck Road from my house. I am concerned about the traffic in that area. It's this project and the next project. We're looking at 2 major bulk storage projects in the same relative neighborhood. That nobody has done a traffic study at the intersection of London Bridge and Dam Neck Road. This project's about a mile east of Dam Neck Road. The other project's about a mile west. However, when you have these 2 small projects put together, it's going to add a lot of traffic to that intersection. When I leave my house in the morning, I can't make a left turn. Traffic is backed up down London Bridge Road from Dam Neck all the way into Castleton. I have to take a left-hand turn, go up to Harper's Road, and come out. Our last speaker talked about the number of accidents. There are always accidents happening at the London Bridge and Dam Neck. There's always accidents at Harper's and Dam Neck. On the other end, in Dam Neck Road and General Booth, last year it was rated as had the most accidents in the city of Virginia Beach. Yet we are going to put a facility there that is going to cater to contractors that are going to show up at 6 o'clock in the morning during rush hour and come back at 7 o'clock at night during rush hour. So we're adding all this extra traffic to the area, but nobody's looked at the studies for how much traffic it's going to affect at the 2 major intersections on either side. Yes, there's not a lot of traffic in front of the ingress because everybody is at because everybody's at the corner of Dam Neck and London Bridge, either going to Oceana or going to the interstate. I'd ask that you defer this until a study can be done on this project and the other project, because we got 2 projects in the same area that are going to be adding a lot of traffic. Individually, it's not a lot, but together it will be a lot, and it will have a great impact on our neighborhood. Speaking of accidents, just as a note, my wife and my neighbor did get involved in a very bad accident at Harper's in Dam Neck. And that is a very dangerous area, and we do need to consider looking at the traffic. During the Planning Commission, it was stated that Dam Neck is slated to be going into a 6-lane highway in the future. So now you're looking at having an ingress and egress onto a 6-lane, 45 to 55 mile an hour road, and that's just not going to work in the city of Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen, want a cough drop?
Mike Jared. And after Mr. Jared will be Arlene Painter.
I did the pictures for everybody. Can I hand them out or somebody hand them out?
I'll pass them around for you. Thank you. How many copies are there?
There's 11.
Okay, thank you.
All right. My name's Mike Jared. I'm the resident at 1800 Chelsea Green Drive, 32-year resident. We bought our dream house back in 2012. In 2014, we received word that the existing storage facility would be expanding. After rallying the neighborhood, we learned that the absolute horrors in the neighborhood had been experiencing: beer bottles thrown over fences, softball teams practicing, biker gangs, sex offenders, 31 illegal businesses. There's probably more than 100 still in there. No buffers, no 25-foot separation, even though conditions exist. It's been 10 years and trees are getting planted. So we organized rally, we met with landowners. Miss Henley and Miss Wilson came over to see the property. Planning and zoning were called out multiple times while woods were being cut down, roads were being built, and dirt was put in the shape of a berm without permits. Stop works were issued, violations were given. We followed the process. Items were discussed and conditions that didn't completely agree with were passed. So now, 3 years later, the applicant grabs the old site layout and wants 3 of 7 conditions removed. Remember, this is an industrial next to a residential, not a business or a commercial property. My job is to effectively influence you to preserve and protect our family, friends, atmosphere, and our community. We need you to keep the conditions in place. We're going to do some pictures real quick. So starting in the upper left, the signage is the first picture. This is a picture of the applicant's other properties. All of them were taken on his other properties. There is no permanent call for signage, so this is what we can expect. It's similar to a banner of some sort. The second picture from the upper left is just trash junk, typical when an unconditioned industrial lot exists. Number 3 is trailers on a chain link, beautiful property in Norfolk. That's why we need a height restriction. Number 4, yes, this is our deer ice cream truck that was discussed in planning. Internal generators, external, doesn't matter. They need not to be allowed, or we will have no protection. Number 5, 6, and a bunch of the others are just the trailers at a Norfolk location. That's why we need height restrictions. Then in the middle, the left one shows how silly an RV looks behind a smaller fence. Back to sound, if you go into your ordinances, which is Article 2 Noise, Section 2363, City Council hereby defines and declares that excessive sound is a serious hazard to public health. So if you read through the whole deal, which I don't have time to, we have the right to and should be ensured sounds like the condition needs to remain. So we need to keep that no external generators, internal generators. Planning, not sure where their lack of care and concern was on this one. But they really didn't create any conditions. Some other conditions to look at would be the 1-year checkup like we had before. Save all the trees, that's for Miss Marsh. The 3-foot berm with the fence on top of it behind the existing berm. No power for SACES. We don't know about the hours. A pump for RVs up front. Lights out after business hours. I heard earlier about moving neighborhoods in a positive direction. This is not moving our community in the positive direction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Arlene Painter, and then after Ms. Painter will be Alan Prince.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Arlene Painter, and I'm a homeowner in Prince George Estates and president of the Homeowners Association. I'm speaking in opposition of the modifications of the proffers and conditions that were approved at the October 10 Planning Commission meeting for the Dam Neck Storage Partners LLC. As a homeowner in Prince George Estates, which is adjacent to this parcel of land, these modifications are very disturbing. The removal of the size restrictions for stored items and allowing generators of any kind will adversely affect our neighborhood without new fences and berm requirements. If the owners of this property want to store items taller than 6 feet, they should be required to build a berm along the entire perimeter of the bulk storage yard and place the 8-foot privacy fence on top of the berm. This would at least help to protect our neighborhood from looking at the contents of the storage yard. Even with these changes, there still should be a height restriction. The generator issue is somewhat confusing. We have been told that the generators will only run when a vehicle is started to move it off the property. We are requesting that specific restrictions be in place so that the generators do not run while the vehicles are being stored. Generators are noisy, and we should not be subjected to the constant noise. We are also concerned about drainage issues. When there's a significant amount of rain, the back part of Prince George Estates floods. Homeowners have had to deal with water halfway up their yards and water that was so deep we were unable to drive home. When the drainage ditches are changed or reconfigured for the storage yard, We are concerned that this will make our drainage issues worse. We understand that there will be a stormwater management review. Please ensure our homeowners that drainage in our neighborhood will be considered and that we will have additional drainage, though we will not have additional drainage issues due to the changes on this property. We understand that Dam Neck Storage Partners has the right to use their property to make money, but they should not be able to do it to the detriment of the homeowners in our neighborhood. We also understand that because of the noise zone, the Department of the Navy considers this an appropriate use of the property. Having industrial next to residential is unprecedented, and steps need to be taken to ensure our quality of life. I don't know of another neighborhood in Virginia Beach that has to deal with bulk storage areas in their backyards. We should be able to sit in our backyards and not look at storage containers or whatever other equipment they want to place on the property and not have to listen to generator noise. How would you like to look out your window and see storage containers? How would you like to sit in your backyard and listen to generators? Our homeowners take pride in our neighborhood and have invested a lot of money to enjoy their property. Please do not approve these modifications as requested. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Alan Prince.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to talk today. My name is Alan Prince. I've been a resident at Prince George Estates since 2010. Our concerns with Mr. DeCeff's request to lift the height restrictions and the noise restrictions are very real. They were very real when we were here, I guess about a month ago with planning, when we watched it, basically pass through to show up on your desk. As we walked out of that meeting, we stood in the hallway with Mr. DeCeff, and we left with assurances that the proper berms would be in place and no external generators. That's not how he operates. Obviously, that changed at the first opportunity to try to sneak something in, like these changes that happened, immediately, within a week. So the faith that I have in the handshake that I share with that man was completely shaken immediately when I heard that this was the next thing, the first thing that was coming up. This is the third time within a month that we've been out here. Mr. DeCeff has been here for one of those trips. Me today, personally worked 12 hours, dumped 3 kids off on my mother-in-law, which I see now I could have brought them. I wanted to see them.
We might be getting babysitting services.
Your really, government at work.
Yeah, absolutely. But really, just in hopes that my voice would matter. We want to make sure that it's very clear that our neighborhood and the 84 homes in it are not for, we're not naive enough to think that land's going to stay beautiful farmland forever. People are going to develop. We know that. But we do believe that we have the right and to be respected, to have our voices heard, and for our property to be protected and respected as well. I grew up on the Eastern Shore, and I was talking to my wife about it, and I'm done. But, I was talking to my wife about it, and I'm fairly young, but a handshake and an agreement, it means something. And I shook his hand right in the hallway, right here, and heard him say, "I can't speak for how the previous owners operated, but I can speak for how I'll operate." And then went in to say, "No, generator, I'm here to respect you guys." And I feel like if we give an inch on this, there will be miles and miles taken at our neighborhood's expense. So I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and thank you for hearing us, and absolutely have a great day.
Thank you very much.
That's all the speakers, sir.
May I, the lady wasn't at the table when I tried to sign up. May I have a minute or two?
Okay, yeah, please come forward and, just provide the clerk with your name, address, and phone number.
You all have seen me before. My name is Tracy Little. I live at 1900 Candy Tuck Court in Virginia Beach, and I live right there. The cul-de-sac at the very point, the furthest poor part of our neighborhood. I emailed you all a PowerPoint today. I hope you saw it. If you did, would you please just give me a little nod? That spoke volumes. If you looked at it, I was accused of sending only pictures that were from major storms, but clearly it's not. We've lived there a long time, and if I could include all of the pictures of the fields flooded from just regular rains, incidents, it would have been a much larger PowerPoint. There are serious issues with the flooding. There are going to be serious issues with rain. And if you all saw in that very last PowerPoint slide, the district, I'm sure you're all aware of what's coming next. We were made aware, and our neighborhood is going to be completely surrounded by commercial, industrial businesses, and it will adversely affect our neighborhood, I believe. And I would just hope that you all take our small little lives into consideration when you make your decisions to approve or disapprove any conditional changes that will potentially be detrimental to some of us there. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. This is extremely difficult for a lot of reasons, primarily because of the impact of the ACUs on this property and the homeowners. And that means that we do have difficulties in determining the uses that would be compatible with these neighborhoods. You know, we were talking about protecting our neighborhoods, but now we have this other situation that we have to recognize the impact to Oceana, and it does get to be difficult. So that's just one of those things we have to deal with in the future. Of course, this use is already approved, and what we were asked in this application is to modify the conditions. And I'll look to Mr. Stiles, and anytime I say something that's not correct, you can correct me. So as long as somebody abides by all of the conditions that were approved, this could go forward. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. If you deny this change, then the existing conditions that were originally imposed and the proffers that were made and accepted would have to be honored in order for the use to exist on that property.
Of course, the problem with that is that the previous application required the access to be off London Bridge Road, and apparently that's been sold, and those people are are not willing to make this access available, and so, but that would be a problem he would have.
The applicant would have to work that out with the adjoining property owner to the extent that he could.
So what we're looking at is just whether or not to allow the modification of conditions. I appreciate that it seemed like the neighbors were willing to work to perhaps come up with something that could be acceptable. There were issues, of course, with whether or not the berm would be all the way across the property with the 8-foot fence over it, or, you know, what kind of limits could be on a height. But without the applicant here to agree to those things, we can't impose them. I am somewhat concerned about the access, because this property, as I look at it, seems to have access on Dam Neck Road and also Harper's Road. As a matter of fact, the write-up says that the use of Dam Neck Road is preferred over Harper's Road, where an entrance would unavoidably be located in a curve. Well, I won't ask the city attorney to give an opinion, but it's just kind of my understanding that we can't tell somebody they can't have an access off a road that they front on, so I don't know how that would work. So it could be that this could be avoided by just using the access directly off one of these roads into this property. This application was going to provide the access a little farther down Dam Neck at an existing entranceway, and I guess that's the difference. But I just don't know. If we do not allow this, would one of these places where there is road frontage have to be allowed? I don't know. We'll talk about that another time.
Well, I will say in response to your comment that some access has to be provided, but in my opinion, that access that would have to be provided would be for the zoning that existed prior to the conditional change if the conditions were not met. So if the applicant came forward and said, I want to access the property from a road I front on for a use that was permitted under the prior zoning, then you might have an obligation to accept that. But I don't think you have an obligation to accept it in connection with the conditional rezoning that you gave previously.
And as far as looking at all the property that's around this, that's just something we need to think about when we're looking at future uses. So there has to be access, I guess, if it's going to be used as the prior zoning, which I think was agricultural. So those things would have to be overcome. I was very much concerned by the PowerPoint that showed the flooding on this ditch that runs through here. And staff was looking at that today somewhat, but hasn't had a chance to totally evaluate it, but they are looking at that. So we can't answer that tonight. I'm just very concerned that the applicant hasn't chosen to let us hear from him or to come tonight, and we really can't impose any other conditions without his approval. And I really hate to have these people have to keep coming back down if we were to defer it, so I'm just inclined to deny it.
I will second that if that's a motion.
I was just looking to see if anyone wanted to make any other comments.
I would, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sure.
How is the applicant notified? Because this all went on email, and I'm really surprised that nobody's here because they've been here before. And I get what Barbara's saying, and I completely agree, but I also, listening to what the folks from the neighborhood said, it sounds like there are things that they are looking for the applicant to do that they need to hear. Okay.
Mayor.
So to keep it as is. Okay. Okay.
Well, I'm thinking, well, he couldn't come back in with substantially the same request for a year. But is that substantially same request this modification of conditions, or could he come back in with some other modifications of the conditions?
Well, he can't come back in with substantially the same petition that if you deny it tonight. Your code says that whether or not another petition is substantially the same is determined by the planning director. So I don't know. I think we'd have to see what his new proposal was, and then the planning staff would have to weigh in on whether or not that truly was a different proposal.
Well, clearly he's had the opportunity, and if he missed watching this tonight, he can watch a rerun to see what the problems are with this, and if he would like to make a proposal that would satisfy these concerns, I suppose we would consider whether or not we would entertain that. But I just really certainly can't recommend approval without him here, and I just am inclined to move for denial.
Shannon?
I'll second that. But I just wanted to say, the applicant did ask for the deferral, so he should know that it's tonight he asked for it. And two, the community has shown several times that they're willing to compromise. They asked for the fence to be a certain height, they asked for the generators not to be out there, and they were promised that. And then these three things that they asked for to finally agree to let something happen behind their homes are the three things that we're trying to change here. And so I thank you for making the motion to deny it, and I will second that and gladly push my button.
Okay, any other comment? Okay, the vote is open. To deny.
To deny, so the vote is 10-1, the motion has been denied.
Did you mean to do the other?
You mean to support the motion
Yeah,
to
I
deny?
meant to support it. Sorry.
Ms. Wooten, I'm sorry,
Support it.
so,
I'm sorry, I meant to support that.
Yeah.
so you were in support of the motion to deny?
Yes.
Okay,
Support
so
of the
11
deny.
to 0.
Sorry.
Those double motions get
I've done
confusing.
that.
Sorry, so
I
11 to
meant to
0.
be green.
11 to 0.
Sorry.
That's fine.
It's a rite of passage, Sabrina, so, you know.
And then the city attorney.
Okay, moving on. Okay, planning item number 2, BMSVS LLC, bulk storage yard.
The first speaker is Michael Childress.
Unanimous.
And after Mr. Childress will be Marcella Scarpa.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, for letting me speak. I am a resident of the City of Virginia Beach since 1958, so I've lived here my whole life. I work for a company called Arc Natural Services, which is on Horse Pasture Road. We moved in June of 2013, operated that business, and when we first moved in, we had a tenant, so we bought the building after 5 years of operating that business. During those 5 years operating that business, we stored granite slabs in our parking lot in front of our building, probably close to 1,000 slabs. And it's a large area in the front of the parking lot, and that's how we operate our business. Most all companies that are in the granite business store slabs outside. It's common in the industry. Most everywhere you go, you'll see that. So then, after 5 years of operating that business, we decided to go ahead and purchase the building, paid millions of dollars for the building. As we went to close on the loan for that, we were told we had to remove all of the slabs out of our parking lot, put them back in our building, which obviously wouldn't fit. We had a tenant that occupies 40% of our building. They had a lease with us when we bought the building, and we have to honor the lease. They also have a 5-year option to renew their lease. They have 2 years left on their lease. So we went to the Planning Commission and spoke to them regarding this, and they recommended that we have a 7-year temporary bulk storage permit offered to us. We said we would accept that. We're okay with that. Hopefully that in the 7 years after that passes, our tenant moves out and we can occupy the rest of our building. So we plan to occupy the whole building in the future, but the situation is that we're in this building. We've reduced about 35 to 40% of our inventory, which has a direct impact on our revenue. It could really impact our business staying alive. It has impacted me personally because of my income as the sales manager and branch manager of that division. So we're asking you to approve the 7-year temporary conditional use permit for bulk storage for our facility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Marcella Scarpa. Marcelo Scarpa. And then after Mr. Scarpa will be Stephen Johnston.
Welcome, sir.
Good night, everybody. Yeah, I just came here to maybe clarify any questions that somebody should have, because many times I see people mixing up what is a granite fabricator and what's a granite wholesaler. That's our case. You know, a granite wholesaler is a very peaceful place where we have our material neatly organized, well maintained, and it's different from a fabricator where there's noise, there is dust, there is pollution, vision because of scraps. So sometimes it's not clear for people what's the difference between these two. Our place, it's peaceful, there's no it's just a wholesale place. So I'm basically here to clarify any questions. I brought here, let me show you quick. This is just a picture showing what is a granite yard. I'm sure some of you already probably have been in one of these places. And it's a very small area. It's just it's under 4,000 square feet. Area is very small place in our parking lot. And like Mr. Childress said, the front of our building faces Horse Pasture Road, which is a very small street. There's basically no traffic there. And the back of the building is faces London Bridge, which is a high traffic road. So it's has much less impact having in the front of the building, which nobody's seeing basically, than in the back of the building that would be London Bridge. So that's basically it, just some basic clarification here. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much.
Stephen Johnston?
Like I said earlier, this project was somewhat connected to the last project that was denied. Now we're only adding one minimal set of traffic to the intersection. I don't have any objections to the project moving forward, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all the speakers.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Sure. I deferred this from last month to this month at the request of some folks that were opposing in the neighborhood. Since then, we have spoken with the opposing side as well as Mr. Childress today, and I am making a motion to move forward with the 7-year CUP as the planning has suggested.
Second. Good job, Shannon.
Okay, the vote is open.
By a vote of 11 to 0, you've approved the application of BMVS LLC.
Okay, I guess we're up to number 9, Thin Brew Lime Brewing Company, Oceana Crossings, LLC.
The first speaker is Jay Gates. He's the applicant.
Yes, that'd be okay?
No, I want to hear, because I'm
Okay.
confused about why we've got to have a
Yeah,
food
if you
truck.
can come up and, give an opening, and then we'll,
You have an opportunity.
you'll have an opportunity to rebut. How you doing?
Members of the council, and my mother watching on TV, you look beautiful. My name's Jay Gates. I'm born and raised here in Virginia Beach. I am a graduate of Grand Run High School and a graduate of Old Dominion. I have managed and owned several businesses throughout my life in this area, and I'm looking to open up another one that is very near and dear to my heart. I am the sole investor in a microbrewery that I'm looking to open with a gentleman who's just retired from the Virginia Beach Police Force as a lieutenant. In retirement, he wishes to brew beer for the rest of his life, and I look to help him out and give him a place to do it. What Thin Brew Line is not just a brewery. It's a tap room where we brew the beer and then serve it in a tap room that is dedicated to first responders. But breweries and tap rooms have always been more than just about beer. They serve as community hubs, gathering places, and sources of local identity and pride. Thin Brew Line will be no different. Our business model is based on honoring first responders and giving back to the community. Many of our beers are already tied to charities. For example, our Dry Irish Stout would donate a portion of every beer sold to the Police Benevolent Association Local 34's Fallen Officer Fund. Our Kolsch, aptly named Kolsch 9 or K9, will donate to the Retired Police Canine Foundation, a national nonprofit charity who find homes for retired police dogs. And our Station 12 Fire Engine Red Ale will fill the boot each month for the charity of choosing by our neighbors at the SeaTac Firehouse. Our Thin Brew Line will be a gathering place that honors the men and women who put their lives on the line every day to serve our community and give them, their friends, and their families a place to call their own. We look forward to the opportunity to do just that, and I thank you for your time and your opportunity to share our business model with you, and I look forward to answering any questions anyone has. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Mrs.,
Yeah, I've got a question.
can you come back? Ms. Henley has a question.
I'm very naive. Okay, in this craft house,
Yes, ma'am.
if I were to go there, what would I purchase?
Craft beer that is brewed in-house.
So the only thing you have for sale there is beer
Correct.
for our first responders. Okay. There's no requirement, as there is with other beers, that there has to be food sold.
No, because we are a craft brewery, and we brew our product there, and we have a tap room, there is no requirement to serve food.
But you were asking also to have a food truck.
Correct. So on occasion, what breweries have is they have food trucks come to provide food to their customers. What we're going to be doing is working with our neighbors in the same shopping center. We have restaurants that are our neighbors. So instead of using food trucks, we will be using them to have to-go orders that will provide food to our customers. I didn't want to neglect having the open-air market permits just for special occasions, as if we were having a one-year anniversary party or something and we wanted to put on something extra. I would like to have that opportunity to have them, although they would be very, very limited.
Well, it was really my concern that we were going to be approving a food truck to provide food there, when you do have 3 restaurants there who are paying good rent to the
No,
shopping
I've already
center.
sat down with my neighbors to
And,
go over a deal to have them provide the food themselves.
I really don't have anything against food trucks, but I just don't think the place for them is in a shopping center that has restaurants. So I would not be in favor of that. But now, you are only going to be using one of the units in the shopping center.
One of the units in,
Yeah, what is it, the one on the...
oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see that picture. Yes, we're the end cap unit of the second
224
building.
or 124?
124.
124.
Mhm.
That's the only one that you're going to be using, is
Yes,
just that one? Okay.
John.
My question.
Yeah, John.
Question for the city attorney. Now Barbara's whetted my appetite. So is this condition that you talked about, does that or does that not provide the permission to have a food truck? That's what I'm trying.
I believe that is part of the application.
Okay,
Yes.
so to get to Mrs. Henley's point, is there a way to fashion the condition that really provides the narrow application that the applicant verbalized to us? Because we know about conditions now, they have to be very specific. So if there's a general application and that goes, that doesn't have all those little nuances, and then how do we really know that the objective that we're after is achieved to the point? That's what I'm trying to get at, too. I liked your answer. I'm glad you solicited it, but I'm unsure that the condition as it's written legally achieves that narrow construction.
Councilman Moss, if I could take a stab at this.
Please.
You're absolutely right. If you do limit with the condition, that is a very difficult condition to enforce. Something like 3 per year. Another option this owner could have would be to go through the special events process, should he have an event, and that could permit the food truck that way.
Thank you. I'll just yield to the district council person at the time.
Well, I think I'm not the district council person, that's John. Okay, so he's actually asking for 2 conditional use permits, one for a craft brewery and one for an open-air market. So if we only approve one of the conditional use permits and not the other?
Yes, you can do that.
Because they're 2 separate? Well, that's just my feeling. When you've got 3 struggling restaurants there already, and then we just allow a food truck in there, that doesn't seem quite right. That was my impression, so.
Thank you for making that clear to me.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yes,
That's all.
John.
And I mean, certainly if the applicant is only going to do it on a every now and again, certainly the special event process and permitting could accommodate that. But I don't know that I share your same concerns, Barbara, in that, all of these storefronts, I believe, are owned and leased by the same owner. And so, certainly that owner is incentivized to protect the other leasees within the unit. So, I mean, they would not want to put in a single unit that would then put their other leases in jeopardy, would be my sense of it. But as a friendly amendment, if it's not objected by the applicant, I'd be fine to strike that one. You'd still be able to have them, but you would have to go through the additional step of getting a.
And that's kind of what I was hoping to avoid, just because of the cost involved with having to do that anytime we would do it. So it was told to me that it would be better to put it into this conditional use permit, so that if we were to have an event, you wouldn't have to go through that process and pay that fee each time you were to do it. And again, not that we are going to do it often, it was to have that option on the table that if we did, if some special event did come up. then that would be the case.
Well, that's the whole reason.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. Yes,
I-
Jess.
If I could lend some assistance to the applicant, it's pretty commonplace that when somebody opens a brewery that they apply for the open air market permit as well, simply because food trucks and breweries kind of go hand in hand. But I would also advocate for him that a brewery, specifically a craft brewery, depends heavily on local restaurants buying their beer and serving it in their restaurant. And I can't imagine you'd want to start any kind of bad relationship with restaurants that were in your immediate vicinity who would potentially be customers of you. I think that the open air market is completely reasonable and should be approved. Breweries often use food trucks as a way to bring other people in. And I would also add, food trucks generally are not competing with brick and mortar restaurants. They're in a different kind of industry. They're not interested in competing with people who are looking for a place to sit down and eat. They're competing against really more fast food restaurants at a higher quality. So I imagine that your landlord has put something kind of,
Yeah, and if I could actually take it a step further, I've actually sat down with Mr. Bennett, who owns the Surf Rider. He also owns he owns 2 out of the 3 restaurants that are there. And so we've had to sit down to go over a system. So it's not just where people are going to be ordering food from him. He's setting up a whole system where they're going to bring it over in nice trays instead of just takeout boxes. So he's really going an extra step to work with us, because what I'm looking to do is stimulate inside of the shopping center and help those businesses out. So I'm going to be actually helping their to-go orders and boosting them up. So like I told him, I was like, if we have a food truck, it would be on a very rare occasion as some sort of celebration for a specific reason or purpose. So he is very much on board with the idea.
Okay.
Would you like to hear
There's no
other
speakers.
speakers?
Yes.
Okay, Stephen Johnson.
Yeah.
And after Mr.
Thank you very much.
Johnson will be Ms. Messner.
Good evening. First off, Jimmy Frost sent me a text. He wishes everybody here a Merry Christmas. He said he's home eating bacon. I guess I'm taking the role of traffic monitor today. Looked at the application while I was going through some other things, and the application talks about traffic impact on Eagle Road, which is in front of it, which is a side street. Eagle Road feeds into Oceana Boulevard. Oceana Boulevard traffic rating is failing. The Navy has said we need to do something about the traffic on Oceana Boulevard. We are now going to put a restaurant, and knowing Jay, it's going to be a successful restaurant with an open fare possibility, dumping more traffic onto Oceana Boulevard. In the next coming years, the Navy's going to look at another BRAC commission and reducing the military. We don't want to be known as the city that built a sportsplex at the end of the runway, that built a venue that's attracting lots of people onto the main access road to Oceana and the feeder road between Oceana and Damnet. We need to look at the big picture, not just a small roadside street in front of the building. We need to look at where it feeds into. And it feeds into Oceana, which is a failing road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Messner.
I need to ask Ms. Henley if she has the pictures I sent her to go up there, or if I need to bring mine. What is that, bright light? Do I need to bring mine, or did you get to put-
I left mine in the other room. I think everybody, this one probably
That's
does
not the picture I
well.
sent
I
you.
know that, but I think this one portrays the area very well.
Not at all. Yeah, it's strange. I spent 4.5 hours at the planning meeting. Yeah, everyone here has seen the letters I've sent. And I greatly appreciate Ms. Henley and Mrs. Wooten meeting with me and looking at the project that started before it even went to planning. I asked for a deferral at planning. Mike Inman is the town bank director. Mr. Ripley is the town bank director. Ms. Quasney received $500 from Police Benevolent. DeOliver accepted $1,100 from Ron Ripley at town bank. 1,000 from Doug Ellis. This is Venture Realty, on and on. And RJ Nutter, who just spoke, is with Troutman Sanders that we hire. That's a different project. I have correspondence with all city council since October 28th. This latest brewery proposal is for 2 food trucks. It is outrageous. The brewery is a brand-new industry. They do not have to buy a restaurant license. People that go there to drink are not going to be going to the other restaurants, and it's outrageous to have made a deal with a surf rider behind their backs. I have copies of the people that were notified. Only 5 homeowners, and not the one that abuts, that is directly behind it. 1,100 Flick Away was not notified. That's the closest one. This is based on 2006 traffic studies and rezoning, which includes a Wawa gas station and convenience store with 10 pumps that'll be in that grassy area. Y'all have also seen the pictures that the signs are bleached. They're not supposed to exit onto Oceana Boulevard. The applicant, the application said there were no traffic counts for Eaglewood Drive. The traffic there is 123,000 cars per day. Eaglewood is about a third of that, and most of them are first responders, police, firemen, and military. The main, could I have a little bit more time than that?
No,
We need
gotta
the
keep it
main
to 3.
entrance and exit opened.
Thank you
was a
very much,
requirement-
Barbara.
All right. Ms. Henley, can you ask me any questions? I've spent a month getting this
I've asked a lot of
ready.
questions already. I think I'm not going to support it, but I've asked all my questions.
But I did ask if I could have the display, so I would like to show this one thing. because
Thank you,
it's-
Barbara.
It's all 3 buildings that are being built out. It's
That's
not
all
just one
that's all the speakers, sir.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think, microbreweries and food trucks are pretty commonplace. I know in my neighborhood that literally one that is directly up against the neighborhood and has been a good tenant, and a food truck is a component of that. So I'm inclined to go ahead and support the applications, and I move for approval.
Second.
By a vote of 9 to 2, you have approved the application of Thin Brew Line Brewing Company.
All righty, and then we move on to item 10, PI Tower Development LLC.
Lisa Murphy.
Should-
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy. I'm a local attorney, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, PI Tower Development LLC. As most of you all know, the recession has greatly increased the number of wireless-only homes. When I first started doing this, most folks still had a landline and they had a wireless phone, and they used their wireless phone just to make voice calls. Remember those days? Now, over 52% of Americans are wireless only at home. That number is 70% for millennials. Most of them are never going to get to the point where they buy a regular phone. Now you can, in addition to using your phone for voice, you can surf the internet, ask Google a question, ask Alexa a question, find out where you're going, upload, post, stream video, download information. There's an incredible, robust amount of usage for data, and this in turn affects the capacity. So the area that we're talking about right now, so you The proposed tower is actually going to be built for a total of 4 users. The initial user is T-Mobile. This just shows you their network of sites in the area, most of which they're co-located on. The towers nearby are really between a mile and just under a mile away. So they're utilizing all of the existing structures. This shows you the gap that they have. And then this just shows you what you all are used to seeing, which is the after. And I might mention that the changes you made to your zoning ordinance tonight, these will be a thing of the past. You won't see these anymore. But in any event, T-Mobile is using the existing structures. When it comes time, where you don't have any tall structures to hang antennas on, and it's time to locate a site to build a tower, as you all know, that can be a very painstaking and tedious process. You've got to work with federal requirements, state requirements, technology needs, and finding a willing landlord. We can't condemn property. And in addition to that, you have to work with the local community. In this case, as the staff report indicates, we were able to locate a tower out of view of a right-of-way and away from residential structures. When we started talking with Commissioner Wiener, who worked with us in the Carol Ann Civic League, and through our conversations with the Fairfield Civic League, folks said, that tower at the Kempsville Shopping Center, which incidentally T-Mobile's on, we don't like that one because it's really visible. And so we took that to heart and really found a location that we think was a good location, and that is in this particular property. So just to orient you, hopefully I can, there we go. Okay, here's Chaladon Drive, which is the frontage of the property. Here's the property itself. It's B2, 1.34 acres. I will point out now that the property actually shares a property line with the shopping center in front, which is the Kempsville Plaza Shopping Center. I point that out because the gentleman who is here to speak tonight is one of the owners of that shopping center. In any event, as the staff report goes on to indicate, yep, this gives you a good sense of that. So there's a portion of the property here has a driveway with intermittent access to the shopping center. The tower site itself will be in about this location. It'll require the removal of some of these containers that are back here. The applicant's access will be directly from Chaladon Drive up an existing driveway here. Won't be going through the shopping center at all. As your staff report indicates, staff went out to the site and they came back and said, we'd like to add a condition that the front yard of the property is cleared up. So all of that, the bulk storage, there you go, then the containers that were in the front of the property exposed to the public right-of-way, that those be removed. And that is, condition number 7 requires that. That gives you just a sense of the front. This, just to sort of line it up, the shopping center is over here. There's a driveway that comes, again, intermittent access to the shopping center, to the rear of the shopping center. But our access would be this way. That just gives you a sense of the site. As I mentioned, we did reach out to the neighborhoods. We did the balloon test so that you could see what the impact would be. 2 things, interestingly enough, that are no longer going to be required, but certainly I will continue to do them just because I think it gives you the best sense of what the impact is going to be from the structure. I'm going to go ahead and hand out a couple of things. Thank you. First one is a proposed condition number 8. Mr. Adams reached out to me, as I mentioned, he's the owner, part of the owner of the shopping center that's to the side of the property. So this property, the side property line adjoins the rear of the shopping center. And he said, we have some concerns and some issues with what the current owner is doing on that property and his uses and the messiness and the appearance of the uses. And we talked about that, and I said, well, let me go out to the site, let me see what we can do. And this shows you that. So what you have in front of you are a few pictures. The first picture is just another aerial that kind of shows you, orients you to the, there you go, there's the rear of the shopping center, and this is the front of the property on Chaladon, and this side property. There are actually containers along the side of the property, which I got a picture of, blocking most of the view. In fact, when I when I pulled up, I thought that was actually a fence, but those are actually containers. But what I did see, and you'll see in the pictures that I took this morning, there are some windows and some frames and some, loose junk, I'll call it, that certainly we thought would be neighborly to try to clean up. And so we went back to the property owner and said, look, what can we do about this? Some of this stuff, it is the rear of the shopping center, but we'd like to try to help make this look nicer. And so you'll see in condition number 8, we've added that the property owner has agreed to do this. We'll remove the windows, window frames, shopping carts, and other loose items on the ground along the portion of the fence line that abuts this. There's a driveway right here, and it's an open fence right there. So that area the owner has agreed to clear. And then the last photo you have is something called a noodle link fence. But we thought to provide a better screening that we would propose a noodle link gate in the gate that's there and panels on either side. The part that's not blocked by the containers. So you'd have an added layer of screening, which, we feel with the combination of the efforts of the owner to clean up that portion of the property and then our efforts to install that noodle link fence that would provide a screen that really isn't there now, we thought that would help to enhance the application. I was hopeful that we could get Mr. Adams' concurrence that those would be acceptable conditions, but I think he's prepared to speak tonight. So we would like to officially add condition number 8 to the list of conditions. We've gotten the owner to agree, and the applicant is agreeable with putting up that fence to screen the property from that particular angle. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, Rosemary.
So this says, we'll remove the windows and blah, blah, blah. Does that mean they'll not put them back later, or? I mean,
Yeah, we can add that they won't be put back later. I just grabbed the things that we saw, that I could see when I was out at the site to try to
we
get
could tighten
specific.
that language up to, so, if they remove it, does this say that?
And will no longer store other loose items on the ground along the portion of the fence line abutting the
It
property.
really is a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm, full honesty,
Yeah.
I went and took the
Oh, yeah,
pictures,
no,
and
I
after
agree
taking
with
the
you.
pictures, I said, you know what, we should try to do something about this.
So if we could tighten that language up, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
The next speaker is Jerry Adams.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. I'm Jerry Adams. I live at 4024 Harlow Street in Virginia Beach. And as was mentioned, I am an owner of Kempsville Plaza Shopping Center, and we abut this property. I am the first to admit we kind of missed the signal that this had been approved by planning and on its way to council before I realized where it was, that it was coming to you all with an approval by the Planning Commission. I immediately tried to contact the planner with the city. I want to say beginning 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I didn't keep any notes because I didn't realize it had gotten this far. I was told in planning that his office was being relocated and he had no phone. And I did finally catch up with him last week. I don't know how. He was really, in that part of the planning department, there seems to be a little chaos, but I'm not blaming that on them. I think I may have gotten a notice at SL Nussbaum. We've got hundreds of employees, and it didn't get to me, and I'm sorry for that. But coming to you, I decided I should go see the owner, Mr. Early, who's a neighbor. I've worked out things with him before. He operates as an, I guess he calls it a shelving company, but if you all have been out there, it's a junkyard. I am not being critical of that. It's been approved, I guess, by the city. But I went out there yesterday. I tried to call him all last week, and I've had the same phone number for 25 years. It didn't work. Please, believe me, I'm not making this up. I went to see him and asked him why he didn't answer his phone, and he got out his phone, and we went through some of the things that could have been wrong with it, but I did play it on my phone and it wasn't answering. I tried to talk him into explaining to me the deal that he was making. I was aware that that folks were looking for a new cell phone site. They approached us. We didn't do anything with them, and I didn't watch for it. So I'm not saying I didn't know about it. I did not know that it had been approved by planning and was here tonight. I'm a positive person. When I learned of it, I learned that they were represented by counsel. Mr. Early did not know that, did not know their name. I did get a copy of a site plan from him, which was drawn in July. I think there's some since then, but he gave me one yesterday. That's the first time I talked to him. I did talk last evening to counsel that was just here, very pleasant and professional woman, I'm sure. I told her what I thought would be very helpful.
Sir, with due respect, the 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I'm sorry, I've given him a couple conditions that we would be satisfied with, excuse me, and if you can take it from there. I'm here opposing it because I haven't been able to work anything out with them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
if I can ask, what were the three, sir?
Sir?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, I was,
question
okay,
over
that's
here.
not a problem. What were the three conditions that you wanted?
Well, there were two. One was to be named as insured by the people that own the tower, a certificate of insurance that they're covering us in case that we're named on their policy for any liability, anything. It's a 175-foot tower.
Mhm.
We're about 100 feet from them.
Mhm.
It's very conceivable that a Pepsi-Cola truck could be driving down there, the tower collapsed, and hits a Pepsi-Cola truck on our property. That's a weird way to put it. I've been told that these towers never collapse.
Mhm.
Well, I don't believe that.
And the second condition?
The second condition follows your planning commission condition that says there should be no shipping containers, trailers, sheds, bulk storage of material allowed within the front yard. I don't have the, I'll just point it back here. This is the front yard of this building. This is our property line, about like that. When you come around our shopping center and people park in the back for several reasons, but they do, we have customers back there, you're looking at this junkyard. We have worked out access with them, we didn't have to. We made a license for them. So we're trying to make this area not look like a junkyard. And it's an opportunity to talk to you all about our neighbor. And we're here to say we'll cooperate, ask them to clean up their property a little bit, like you've asked to clean up Chaladon Drive, and we're happy with the insurance.
Okay, sir, can you get back to the microphone, sir?
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Oh, sure.
I spoke with David Weiner, who's the Kempsville representative for Planning Commission. Him and I had a long conversation this afternoon, and Ms. Murphy, I apologize. I know you and I were in a battle of phone tag. I believe that the condition number 8 that they have proposed would at least address the issue with cleaning up the trash and debris, and I agree with Rosemary, we need to tighten the language up. As far as the insurance is concerned, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but my background is in commercial insurance, and I don't know of an insurance company that would name you as an additional insured for any property damage done from a falling tower. Insurance is property specific, so you would have to be the vested owner of the property in order to acquire coverage. I'm sure that they would probably be happy to furnish you a certificate of insurance showing that they are adequately insured, but in terms of whether if some kind of debris or the tower itself falls on your property, that would in most cases fall under your insurance. But I don't believe us as a body can dictate what kind of insurance they furnish, regardless of whether or not that type of policy exists. So I personally think we need to move to approve the application. Amanda, is there any other speakers on this?
All the speakers.
I would like to move for approval, assuming that we adopt with this additional condition, and I don't know what the process needs to be in order to tighten up the language, but with tightened language to ensure that any debris and all of the things that are making it unattractive are taken care of. I don't know if I need to add any more to that.
Okay, do we have a second and more comments?
Second, I do believe though, Mark, I do believe we need to have the tightened language
have that.
part of the motion, because otherwise we're delegating to staff to speak for the legislative body. We can't do that.
Maybe we can bring Lisa back up. I think she had some ideas on the
Well, good,
language.
but we just need to make that part of the motion though.
If I understood what Ms. Murphy said, you would add the words, something to the effect of, and no longer store loose materials along the adjacent property line at the end of the first sentence in condition 8. Is that what you suggested?
Yeah, along that driveway, so I think the language that picks up about the, and you all know I made this nice and big, so
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did it the first time, I went, wow, that's way too small.
Can we get you to come to the podium?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, just so it's real clear on the record.
Okay, Lisa, can you come up and speak to us, please?
Yeah, so it would be, let's see, it says the owner of the property will remove the windows and window frames, shopping carts, and other loose, we could say items or debris on the ground along the portion of the fence line abutting the driveway facing the rear of the adjoining shopping center, and will no longer store such items in that location. And then remember, you get the noodle link fence too, so you're gonna have a screen that'll really act as a permanent screen. Carolyn wanted to add, in condition 7, there's a timing that's tied to within 2 months following the commencement of construction of the tower, because a lot of the cleanup's gonna come with the crews that come in to do the construction work.
That
So
makes sense.
We're happy to add that timing as well
Okay.
to that condition.
Is that acceptable?
Does the city clerk have that?
Carolyn has it, and I will
Super.
rely on her.
Could you read that back from the city, just so I know what you thought you heard? It's not working
not
well, but I
working
can
well.
hear you.
Within 2 months from the commencement of construction of the tower, the property owner shall remove and not replace the windows and window frames, shopping carts, and other loose items on the ground along the portion of the fence line abutting the driveway facing the rear of the adjoining property's shopping center, and shall no longer store such items in that location. In connection with the construction of the communication tower, the applicant shall remove the existing gate and fence panels to the left and right of the gate, used periodically to enter and exit the property from the rear of the adjoining shopping center, and shall replace them with noodle link gate and fence panels.
Is that acceptable, Jess?
Yeah,
Jessica?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a second on this?
Second.
Second? Okay. Vote's open.
By a vote of 11 to 0, you've approved the application of PI Tower Development LLC.
Which one? 11B, 11A. Okay, then our next item is item 11A, ordinances to amend city zoning ordinance, section 201, permits for fences.
We
Any
have one
speakers?
speaker, Stephen Johnston.
Hello. So finally, the reason I'm here today. The fence ordinance. Currently, the Virginia Beach fence ordinance only requires a permit if you're going into the city right-of-way or the setback. The new ordinance, as written, requires you to get a permit for any fence anywhere on your property. If I want to repair more than 50% of a fence that's damaged in my backyard, I have to get a permit for that. My main concern about this is it's too intrusive on the private property rights of individuals. What I do in my backyard is my business. I bought a house in Lake Placid because we don't have a homeowners association. Tell me what I can do with my house. Tell me what colors. And now the city is stepping in and going to tell me what kind of fence I can have in my backyard. When can I repair my fence in my backyard? Part of getting a permit is you have to have a survey. I bought my house 27 years ago. I do have my survey. My neighbors don't have a survey. To get a survey is $450. That's great. Plus the fee to get a permit. So you're talking $500 to repair or replace a damaged fence in your backyard. And that's wrong. It also doesn't say what kind of fence you have to get a permit for. If I want to put a chicken wire fence around my garden to keep the dogs out of it, I have to get a permit for that now. Because all it says is when you erect a fence, You need a permit, period, and that's wrong. The ordinance is too vague, and I feel it's too intrusive into the people's lives, and this is not what the city's there for. I understand there have been issues about putting fences on right and wrong sides of property lines, and that's how this issue has come up. However, that's a civil matter. That's not a matter for the city government to get involved with a dispute between two neighbors. You're our government. You're not our mothers. I would encourage you to just not approve this ordinance. It's just going to become too bothersome and too cumbersome on the people of Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, John.
Question for staff. Did the speaker accurately describe the effect of the ordinances? In fact, any property constructed inside their own property, not on city easements or right-of-way, require a permit?
As far as the current regulations,
The one that's being proposed that we're voting on.
right, well, currently, it only requires a permit if you're within 30 feet of a public right-of-way. This would require, the ordinance, as it is written here, would require a permit for any new fencing anywhere on the property or repair of 50% or more.
250-foot wide lot, and I put a fence in the middle of my yard, I gotta come down and get a permit. And I just don't think anyone on council ever, I certainly didn't think that that's what we were doing. I think the gentleman made a lot of good points, and I'm not willing to vote no, but I think we should have a lot more discussion on it.
Yeah, where did this come from? Why is it here?
Mr. Hanson.
Oh, that's right.
Comment.
Yeah.
Let him go ahead and make.
I'd like to echo Mr. Moss's comments and Mr. Johnson's comments. I didn't realize that putting a fence in the middle of your yard surrounding your pepper plants to keep the possums out would require a fence to go in. I thought the conversation with regards to the fencing ordinance was related to adjacent property owners where people are putting fences. They are not getting a survey. They are putting fences over in the neighbor's yard, and they are causing quite a bit of havoc with regards to that. I would ask the council to defer that and let me go back and work on it.
Kevin's got a comment.
Just in regard to the way we currently view, garden fencing and that sort of thing, we currently view that as customary yard accessories that, in the same way we would view a swing set or something like that. So I do think that the wording might need to be changed, but that would be excessive.
Well, let me say this. I asked for this ordinance. The ordinance that I asked for is not the ordinance that is here.
Right.
Okay? The Planning Commission changed the ordinance and approved a changed ordinance and sent it through. The reason I asked for the ordinance is I've had several complaints about people building fences on other people's property. And that was my purpose in asking for the ordinance. And I would be fine with Mr. Hanson's suggestion, but I do want to address the issue of people building fences on other people's property and then refusing to remove them, and putting the other property owner in a position to where they have to go to the expense of doing so. I know of one particular property where a person had a wire fence that was rusted and disrepair, halfway torn down and so forth, was on their back of their property, on their neighbor's property in the back. Well, the person didn't like his fence being in disrepair at all, so he built a nice big wooden fence just on the other side of his wire fence, but didn't bother to tear the wire fence down. And so the property owner, his neighbor, had to go in and go to the expense of tearing down the wire fence because it made his property look bad, is what it comes down to. So I'm happy for you to try to address it, but I do want something done about it.
I got you. Yes, sir.
So I'll defer it until you can come back and
Indefinitely.
have an ordinance. and
Yes,
address
sir.
it.
Okay, second. Okay, any conversation on it? The vote's open.
Ms. Wooten, may I have your vote? Thank you. May I, so the vote is 11 to 0. The item has been deferred indefinitely.
Okay, we'll now go to appointments.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I nominate the following individuals for appointments to the Deferred Compensation Board. Alice Kelly, to the Hampton Roads, Norfolk, and Virginia Beach Joint Land Use Study Policy Committee, Mayor Robert Dyer. To the Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization, Mayor Robert Dyer. To the Southeastern Public Service Authority, Mayor Robert Dyer. To the Transportation District Commission of Hampton Roads, Councilmember-elect Aaron Rouse. So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'm sorry, I think we have a speaker for appointments, so would you
Okay,
like to
speaker
hear-
on okay.
Barbara Messner.
There's quite a list here, like 10 or 15. I do not like the appointments to the RAC, to planning, and to all these commissions, because it's a major conflict of interest. Mr. Moss, you were absent last week, but Mike Inman, who you challenged his appointment and problems at the planning, he was just appointed to the RAC. And Ms. Abbott, I thought you would have noticed that. But you've been promoting the breweries, food trucks, a district, et cetera, ever since you ran for office. Why didn't any of you answer my correspondence? Anyway, all this is Bobby Dyer. He's just elected mayor, and he's the only one you've appointed, one other person. He was also the liaison on the, Mr. Wood, you and Mr. Dyer were the liaisons on the arena. There's major conflict because when I went to planning, I'm talking about conflicts and how it applies to who decides things like planning and council. When I went to the planning meeting on November 14th, the application was for Michael Gates, who was an active police sergeant, and his brother, Jay Gates. And he came here and he said he's the only applicant. They've already started in 3 properties, and like I said, there's no due process, and I'm horrified at what we have for representation. I do appreciate your no votes, Mr. Moss.
Thank you.
On the other item.
Can you open appointments,
Okay.
Terry? I'm
Okay,
sorry, 1 second. The vote's open.
Vote's open.
Mr. Jones, thank you. By a vote of 11 to 0, you've appointed those as read by the vice mayor.
Okay, any unfinished business? Okay, under new business, I would like to take the opportunity to give sincere thanks and appreciation to Ben Davenport and to John Earn for their service to this council for a number of years. You are truly and honestly appreciated, and it is the hope that in the near future, when we convene next year, we will find an opportunity to give you formal recognition that you so deserve. Thank you very much on behalf of the council. I think I speak on behalf of the council. Thank you. Okay, at this point, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Would you like the opportunity to say something, Ben?
This has been a tremendous experience. Thank you very much.
Johnny?
It was an honor. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else would like to? Okay, at this point, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.